Hello, I'm Rudolf Aigmüller and I'm musicologist here in Vienna. I'm very, very pleased to welcome you, Professor Frischenschlager, here today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
3 years ago, a colleague of mine, Christina Duncan, started to realize the filming project of your book, Classical Violin Technique. And to celebrate this release, we would like to take a look behind the scenes with you in a 3-part interview series. The interviews will highlight your classical career, your music career, and your approach to classical music. Later on, we will talk about Fritz Kreisler, but for the beginning, I would like to go back to the roots. Professor, you told me once you were born into music. Would you like to tell us a bit your youth and your parents?
Yes. If you have got a father who is professor of composition and music theory at the Mozarteum in Salzburg, and you have got a mother, she was organist and pianist, then it's almost impossible not to become a musician. We were 4 brothers, and 2 of us, they took the way to be a professional musician. The other 2 were successful as engineer, as politician. We lived outside of Salzburg in a big house, in a big apartment with many, many rooms.
Beautiful.
And so there was enough place for all to make music. For my father to compose in silence, for my mother to give lessons on the piano or play, and for us, my brother Georg, to practice cello, and for me to practice violin.
I guess this was a beautiful sound in the house.
I don't know. At that time, perhaps, when I was 7 years old, it was not so beautiful, I think,
And
my sound.
How old have you been when you started learning the violin?
Yeah, I started with my mother when I was 5 years, piano. But then, after 2 years, my parents decided Michael must learn violin. I didn't choose it, but it began with an elderly lady. She was my teacher, but I didn't like her.
No.
So the consequence was that I didn't make any progress.
Oh, no.
But then, after 3 years, my parents brought me to the Mozarteum, and there to the at that time, most famous violin teacher in Salzburg, Theodor Müller. And so I really began to love the violin and to make also some progress, yes.
And your father was also teacher and professor at the Mozarteum, right?
Yes, he was a teacher, and he was well known as a very good teacher in music theory and composition. And he was famous to be a very patient teacher with his students.
Beautiful.
And it was different at home.
At home, did he teach you at home as well?
Yes, he did. And this was another story. At home, he took care of our musical education personally himself, with much ambition. And but he had not much patience, and he was really severe. I remember me sitting on the piano. Maybe I was 12 years old or something like that, trying to play the cadenzas and the basso continuo. My father sitting beside of me, and very angry if I didn't do well. So it was not easy.
Yeah.
But later, I had the great advantage that at Mozarteum and in Köln and in Vienna at the Academy, I didn't need any more lessons for
learned a lot.
Music theory. So, and for this I was always grateful then. And even much later, when I was in Rome for the Academy of Yehudi Menuhin, I was even proud when Nadia Boulanger, the legendary Nadia Boulanger from Paris, went and she came once a month from Menuhin's Academy to Rome from Paris. When she said to me, I was proud, you are very well prepared in music theory.
Wow.
So this
is beautiful.
I was grateful to my father.
Yeah. And we already heard big names like Theodor Müller, like Nadia Boulanger, or of course Menuhin, who we'll talk about in another interview in more detail. But another big name which runs through your life like a red thread is of course the one of Fritz Kreisler. Why is it so important to you to uphold this heritage?
Yeah, so this is a special story. At the Mozarteum, when I studied violin, my teacher, he was like a father to me and I loved him, but I didn't, of course, understand that. He didn't give me Kreisler to play because he didn't like him. He said, this is Kaffeehaus Musik, it's coffee house music.
Okay.
So he didn't understand at all,
Yeah.
Kreisler. So I didn't know who was Kreisler. But then, the year after, I went to Cologne and studied there with André Gertler. He loved Kreisler, he gave me music of Kreisler. And so more and more I was enthusiastic about this music. And now, since many years, for me, Kreisler is absolutely the greatest musician, the greatest, most fascinating artist of all great violinists in the 20th century. So I am really convinced that he has given so much to the world as musician.
Beautiful. And also before Cologne, you've been to the Mozarteum Orchestra, and I think you've been to America once, right?
Yeah, yes, you remember well. I had the great chance, 1956. This was the bicentenary of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, the birth. The Mozarteum Orchestra made a big tour to the United States, and I was so lucky they took me on this tour in the orchestra. And we have made, I think, more than 40 concerts in whole United States.
Wow.
And of course, we started with a big concert in Carnegie Hall.
Oh, wow.
And
Must have
then,
been very impressing coming from Salzburg, going to New York City.
Yes, that was like a shock, coming from this really poor Austria after the war still, no, to this booming America, no. And we had this concert, and after the concert, there was, as usual, was a reception in a big hotel, Henry Hudson, I even remember the name. And so there were many people in the reception, and I was eating and drinking and happy. Suddenly the concertmaster of the orchestra, who was a student of my father and promised my father to look a bit after me, I was quite young.
Lovely.
And he came to me and said, come with me, Kreisler is here.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't really know who was Kreisler. And he brought me to a table of honor where many important people were sitting. I, of course, didn't know. And there was a very old man with wonderful white hair, but looking quite weak and old. This was Kreisler. And so the concertmaster introduced me. This is our youngest member of the orchestra. And so I was made a big bow, of course, and I spoke something to him. I never will know what I said. I was a stupid student. And it was a shake hands.
Oh, wow.
So this, it's accompanying my whole life. I have still made shake hands
Wow.
with Fritz Kreisler.
This is beautiful.
And and this really, this recording accompanied me my whole life.
Yes. Yeah, when you tell the story, I still see like the sparkling in your eyes, and this I guess this was really important for your whole life.
Yes.
And later on, you became co-founder of the International Fritz Kreisler competition as well.
Yeah. When I came back from this tour, I was interested. I had this picture of this wonderful old man, and I wanted to study about him. I wanted to know his biography. And then, a year later, when I went to Cologne to study with André Gertler, I had a teacher who loved Kreisler and who gave me pieces of Kreisler to play. And then my love was growing and growing. And today, since many years, for me, Kreisler is the most musical and the greatest musical artistic personality of all great violinists in the 20th century. And I have been then all my life grateful that still I have met him.
Beautiful. Would you like to tell us a bit the birth or the very beginnings of the International Fritz Kreisler competition?
Yeah, there was in 1975, it was the bicentenary of Kreisler's birth in Vienna. And as usual in Austria, they quite often forget their important artists and people. There was not happening anything in America, in England, in France, in Germany.
Oh.
It was celebrated this
Not in Austria.
100th anniversary of his birth. So I decided, I was a young professor at the Vienna Academy. I decided we must do something, and I organized an event to honor the memory of Fritz Kreisler. No? And we made a beautiful concert, and I was speaking about Kreisler and with enthusiasm. And after the concert, we were sitting together with our most important teachers, violin teachers, Wolfgang Schneiderhan and Franz Samuel. And in this circle, there suddenly everybody said, but why don't you have a violin competition? We need a violin competition in Vienna, a big one, international. Yeah. And it must be under the name of Fritz Kreisler. And so was born the competition, Fritz Kreisler competition, which then Schneiderhan really was working very hard to realize it. And then in 1979 was the first competition. There were even Menuhin in the jury. And this was a great success. And so it started.
Yeah. Later on, you became president of the International Fritz Kreisler competition. And to raise money, you went to the United States, right?
Exactly. Schneiderhan, 1989, asked me to take over the competition, but he didn't want to continue. And it was an honor for me, and now I had a lot to do for the next competition.
Yes.
92. So I had to raise money in Vienna, and I even went to the United States.
Wow.
To raise money, and we made 2 concerts with very good students of mine. We made one concert in New York, the Weil Hall of Carnegie, and we made another concert in Washington at the Georgetown University.
Would you like to tell us about the concert in New York?
Yeah, this concert in New York was one of the most touching experiences in my life. We played this concert, all beautiful pieces of Kreisler. I was speaking about Kreisler. And I have seen during the concert, when I looked to the audience, there were many very old people. And when my students played, some of them had tears in their eyes.
Oh no,
And
wow.
I was very impressed. And after the concert, Franz Rupp, he was the pianist, he was 90 years
Right,
old,
yeah.
90 years. He came to me and congratulated me and the students. And then I asked him why the people it was a so intense atmosphere in this concert. And he told me, yes, you must know that many of these old people are refugees
Oh, wow.
from Austria
Like
and
Kreisler.
Germany, like Kreisler, who had to leave their homes because of Hitler.
Yes.
And therefore, this great emotion, hearing the Kreisler music in this concert. And Rupp told me also that Kreisler for them was a kind of moral help through his person and through his music for these refugees. And this really, I never forget. And then the concert in Washington, there, when I came the first day, because we got the violin of Kreisler, both for the concerts
Really?
New York, and it was the first time after Kreisler himself had played in New York on this violin. This violin was to hear the sound of this beautiful violin, beautiful
amazing,
Guarnerius,
yes.
was heard in
Carnegie Hall.
in Carnegie Hall, yeah, in Weil Hall. And so when I went to the Library of Congress, the director of the music collection came to me, and it was very nice. We spoke a lot. I thanked for all this help. And then suddenly, it was a lady. She asked me, Mr. Frischenschlager, do you know that we have here a score from a certain Friedrich Frischenschlager?
Oh!
And is this some? Do you know this man? I'd have to say, my dear lady, this is my father.
This is amazing, wow.
And so
This is mind-blowing.
I have seen an autograph of my father I didn't know about in the Library of Congress. This was really...
Wow.
And then, because of these wonderful connections, and also with the help of the Austrian embassy, we got the permission that the violin of Kreisler could be played also in the gala final of the next Kreisler competition. 92.
In Vienna.
In Vienna. So the prize winners played in the große Konzerthaussaal, and Kreisler's violin, his music. And this also, the people were very enthusiastic. It was a special moment, no?
This is
Also
amazing.
there, the last, I don't know how many years, Kreisler had played in this hall on this violin. Now some wonderful young violinists played on this violin again in this big hall.
Amazing. But what's also amazing is that you're closely associated to the University of Vienna, that you're closely associated to the University of Music and Performing Arts here in Vienna for now 50 years. You were rector, you know, emeritus now for over 16 years, and you're still teaching your own class every week. Where do you get this enormous energy from?
Well, the first thing is, I must say every day, thank you that I'm healthy. Because without health, you have no energy.
Of course.
And then I think, and of course, I'm always grateful that I can still teach. There are many countries where if somebody is emeritus, has to disappear. But for instance, at Juilliard, the people, the famous teacher can teach until they want, and in Vienna it is like that, and I think it is beautiful, it is wonderful. But for me, there are two sources for energy. The one is I am an intensive musician, and for me, the first most important source is music, to make music and to teach music.
Yes.
And this really, I can feel sometimes if I'm not so well up, but I go to the university, I can teach my students, I forget not to be so well. And so this is one source. The other source is really this feeling that you as teacher are there to help students, in this case to help young violinists, to make the biggest possible, greatest possible progress according to their talents in their study, and to help them not only in music, in teaching, also to help them, to give them help in their daily life, to try to find for them scholarships, and yes, to be there for them aside from the teaching.
Wow.
So this is, for me, these are the main sources for
That's so beautiful.
teaching.
I think there is nothing to add to it. Professor, 1,000 thanks for the interview. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
I thank you very much.